burnout is like, it's a pandemic. More than 88% of professionals are already feeling the heat of burnout.
Especially in today's world, it's something I think a lot of people suffer from.
It's like slowly it creeps in like fog into a closed room. It starts with quiet whispers that we often ignore. You have full night's sleep, but you're still exhausted.
Now that you say it out loud, yeah, my brain probably goes into survival mode, right? Because I can sort of feel the red alert in my head, literally.
Yeah. And mentally, emotionally, it's like you almost have brain fog at times. You miss the joy of life.
You know, the part that you said that all elements of your body get disrupted, I can totally imagine that.
Modern neuroscience and ancient yogic wisdom, they both talk about the same thing. Healing is not a game of mindset here. It has to occur at all levels.
So, whether you are a leader navigating stress, a professional questioning your next step, or simply someone longing to reconnect with yourself, this episode is for you. If you're enjoying Decoding with Jaslin, please consider subscribing to the channel. It makes a huge difference in helping us to bring you the kind of guests that you would like to see. We would also love to hear your opinions in terms of the topics and content you would be interested. So please drop in your comments to share your feedback. Thank you for giving us your time. Hi everyone, welcome to Decoding with Jaslin. Today's conversation is especially for anyone who's ever felt stuck, burnt out, or like they're going through the motions even when everything looks fine on the outside. I'm joined by someone who deeply understands that experience because she's lived it, transformed it, and now helps others rise from it. From being a high achieving global HR leader to co founding a wellness tech company and to now becoming a purpose and power coach, working with high performers across the globe, Swimita Singh Srivastava has walked the path of reinvention and she's helping others do the same. She blends neuroscience, yogic psychology, and real world experience to help ambitious professionals move from burnout and confusion to clarity, purpose, and inner power. So, whether you are a leader navigating stress, a professional questioning your next step, or simply someone longing to reconnect with yourself, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Swimita. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Jess. That was an amazing introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here sharing with your communities to this podcast. I look forward to our communication here.
Okay, then let's get started. So before we dive into the how, can you tell us who do you work with and what's the main transformation you help them achieve?
Sure. So thanks once again, Jess. I'm thoroughly excited to share. I work with mid to senior professionals and entrepreneurs, people who've built impressive careers and businesses, but they're the ones who are secretly feeling stuck. They're drained and they are unfulfilled. So was I. My role is really to help them reset. What we do is we pause, we strip away all the noise, and we reconnect them to their inner compass. It's that part where you know what you really want. A lot of us don't have that clarity nowadays, but we connect to the inner compass, and it's not what really world expect us to do, but what we really want to do. So we don't really slap onto a new role or a new goal, but we create a shift from within, so people can rise again. But this time when they're rising, they are having clarity, calm, confidence, and that alignment. And honestly, for me, when someone reclaimed that inner spark, that joy of living life, that is so fulfilling and that never gets old. So that's what I do.
Interesting. So, what do you think are, for our listeners, maybe some top 2 or 3 warning signs that they should watch out for, which could which could be a precursor that they might be on the trajectory of burnout?
Yeah. Very interesting question. Nowadays, burnout is like it's a pandemic everywhere. More than 88% of professionals are already feeling the heat of burnout. And unfortunate thing about burnout is that it really begins with a major breakdown. It's like slowly it creeps in like fog into a closed room. It starts with quiet whispers that we often ignore. So what happens is that your symptoms could be like you wake up tired, you have full night's sleep, but you're still exhausted. You're doing, always doing, you're feeling like you're powered on always, but you're not getting anywhere. You stop looking forward to things that once you were so excited about in life, right? So unfortunately, burnout affects all layers of our being, whether it's physical, emotional, mental. Like I said, physically could be a constant fatigue, tensions, frequent aches in your body, and energetically you'll feel like you're always on, going on and on and on. And mentally, emotionally, it's like you almost have brain fog at times. You miss the joy of life. You feel like you're not connected with yourself. You stop enjoying life, in things that you used to enjoy. And so what I do is we also blend yogic science here with neuroscience. I'm a big ardent lover of spirituality and yogic science, as well as the neuroscience, being a science student. And it's fascinating to see how yogic science talks about Panchakosha model. I'm not sure if you know about that, but it talks about 5 layers of existence, that we have as humans, which is your body, your energy, your mind, inner wisdom, and your bliss. And these 5 layers, imagine, all get disturbed with burnout. But what's more powerful here is that modern neuroscience and ancient yogic wisdom, they both talk about the same thing. When it comes to neuroscience, it's about your nervous system regulation, your vagus nerve activation, and yogic science talks about energy, emotion, inner awareness. So, really, when it comes to burnout, healing is not a game of mindset here. It has to occur at all levels. And that's why we have it something called Reset and Rise Journey. And we support complete transformation at a holistic level, from somatic, which is at body level, to the spiritual. And that changes people to living a life which is fulfilling, powerful, and joyful.
Interesting. And especially, the part that you said that all elements of your body get disrupted. I can totally imagine that, right? Especially in today's world, it's something I think a lot of people suffer from, like you rightly said, in terms of the pandemic, right? But also because it's so common nowadays and sort of everybody feels the same. Why is it important to address these, right? What's the real cost if somebody just ignores and keeps pushing through?
Yeah, no, it's interesting question, and I'm glad you asked that because like I said, burnout doesn't come with alarm. It's not like a tsunami or an earthquake. It slowly creeps in while you're still delivering, while you're still pushing on your deadlines, while you're still in your day-to-day job. Through motions and through the rut of life and grind. And what happens is that high achievers, they are so good in coping up stress that they often ignore this, and that's where it gets really dangerous. They miss the signs until they completely crashes. So what, as per science, what happens is that our brain gets in a chronic stress adaptation mode, which is, if you've heard about this prefrontal cortex, which is here, and we call that part of the brain as the CEO of the brain. It performs all the executive functions like your decision making, your planning, your creativity. All of that starts here, but that shuts down when you're in chronic stress. And even small decisions can feel really heavy at that time, which is why you see often people nowadays are shouting about having no clarity in life, right? So they feel like when they're in chronic stress, they feel like they are still functional, but they are not, but they're disconnected. They can't feel anything. Their emotions are getting blur and blur. You might be performing, but you don't have a sense of feeling, like you don't enjoy those regular stuff that you once used to enjoy. And like you asked, right, the cost, you lose sense of direction, no clarity. You make reactive choices, your confidence erodes, you don't enjoy life with your loved ones, and it's like a complete shutdown. You get disconnected from life. So I'd say that burnout is not a failure, though. I see it as a positive thing. It's a nudge from your body and system and your spirit that, when it creeps in, when you feel such a feeling, it says, "Hi, buddy, it's time to realign. You've done enough without realigning, and now it's time to reset and rise." because what we do on this reset and rise program is that we don't really just bounce back, but we reset our and rise from a new center, have new vigor of life. And now that you have found that inner compass, you live life more joyfully in alignment, and you enjoy each every day because now you have found your purpose, your alignment. So it changes everything for people who reset themselves.
Interesting. Can you maybe share a quick example of someone who thought they were just busy but were actually burnt out, and what was their breaking point?
Sure. I mean, there are like, I do this work, right? So all of my clients are facing burnout or stagnation. I'll call upon this lady, can't name her, but for the sake of this call, let's call her Helen. She was a high performing team leader in Singapore, always available, always wired, always over delivering, and being an empath, so she was always saying yes to people, 24 by 7, working on weekends. And burnout, like I said, usually does not come with a big thunder, it slowly creeps in. So she did not collapse, but she started seeing some signs in terms of, she started snapping at team members, at her loved ones. She started dreading Mondays. And then she started a lot of missing details, in her life, whether it's birthday dates or some deadlines. So she knew that something is wrong with her. She used to not be this few years back. And what happened is that one day her daughter came to her and said, "Mom, you're always tired and angry ever since you've been in this job for about a year now." And that shook her completely because that was deeper than any performance feedback given to her, which was negative. But that was a wake up call for her. She knew me in one of my last companies. She used to work with me. So she knew that I've moved into this role. So she called me up and she said she wanted to be on this journey of, reset and rise. So she's working. She's in the same job, but now she's leading, not with any chaos. She's completely calm, composed. Her presence is magnetic and it's so strong. She's going to job every day. And what changes mostly for her is that she started seeing life very differently. She's no longer trying to prove or perform. It's like she operates from that inner alignment and confidence where she knows she's going there to actually create an impact and not just to get the wows from the world. That process completely changed her, and this makes me feel so fulfilled. Yeah, so that was one example.
So, one of the things you spoke about was clarity, right? That you basically start operating from a space of clarity. What does that really mean for somebody who's feeling lost, especially for in the example you just gave, where you still go back to the same job, you still have the same life, but what does that clarity now mean?
Yeah, beautiful question. And I'll use a metaphor here, like clarity for me. And that's what I explain to my clients that, it's like when you're riding on a road and it's blurry, it's all foggy. So clarity is like turning on fog lights, when you can't see anything ahead. So what happens is that you're still moving, but you take one step at a time, but you have sense of direction ahead. You know that it's going to certainly take you to somewhere. So clarity gives you that permission to pause, reevaluate and choose things differently. Clients used to earlier say that I've been on a path, but this doesn't feel like it's mine. They were not very sure and clear about their path. They want to feel present and not be performing. So if I just go back to science here, and I love science, like I said, clarity kicks in just when your nervous system calms down. It's like when you do these grounding exercises, breath work, somatic tools, your amygdala, which is at the back of your brain, that gets overactive because that's the limbic brain we call in science, and it's the brain part that gets overactive when you're in under stress. And of course, your prefrontal cortex that disengages completely. So, in order to you have that clarity, it's important that you operate from here. So, with all these exercises and tools and practices that we do, we basically try to just switch on our prefrontal cortex. So, clarity is not just about mindset. It's a physiological shift that you create in your presence, and that changes your whole being. You completely see a different aspect of life ever since you see and you experience these practices and exercises in day-to-day life.
What do you think actually causes us to sort of, you said that, we start operating from our amygdala rather than the prefrontal cortex. What do you think causes that shift?
See, the the shift is actually about understanding that you no longer can respond to life with ease and calm because you are under survival mode, right? So as soon as you see, and that's how we are wired as humans. As soon as you see a threat in front of you, our stresses, which is like your amygdala, that's switched on, and we want to then conserve energy, and we want to then not, our energy in our body does not really go in terms of digestion or other metabolic activities that otherwise in a calm being would you then focus on. So now it's the time when you're on high alert, your heart start pounding, and you may see that when your stress is on, you sort of get your heart pounding, your somatic symbols, you start getting those body nudges, your your heart pounding, your breathing changes, your metabolism goes for a toss completely. So that's the response of a body to save it. It does not then perform functions which are otherwise done in calm and forward future looking aspect of life. So that's what happens when you're in stress, and that's the shift which creates the whole havoc within us. But the good thing is that our mind and our body is all aligned, right? Like I've said in Panchakosha, we are energetic beings with 5 layers. So if your physical layer is impacted, you will definitely have your mental energetic level also gets impacted, and so as your um, wisdom layer and your bliss layer gets impacted. So the good thing is the fortunate news is we can leverage our body to calm our mind, and that's what is fascinating to me because while mind is really creating all the havoc and unclarity into your life, but there are tools and techniques and somatic exercises that you can use in the moment and create calm, and create that pause in your body, and your mind gets at rest, and then you can see things clearly.
So is it because, going back to that, because I found that very interesting, uh, that you said that we start operating from the amygdala instead of the is it because the current, a lot of scenarios that happen in today's world emulate our, I don't know, ancestral brain, which makes it seem like survival threats, even though they are not in reality survival threats?
Absolutely. You nailed it. And I'm glad you said that because we haven't changed, from those millions of years ago to now. We are still people with, with the same limbic brain, which is emotional brain. And it is there to evolve us and to safeguard us. First thing is safety and security. And if that's not set, you really can't have a sustainable life. You can't even think of your next day. If today is a day where you have, which is a threat to you, you can't foresee a second day coming up in your life. So our brain is still that, we are still carrying on the same brain that used to be with the ancestors, right? When they were in jungles, they used to just not have food and see different animals and get threatened. So we also feel the threats of deadlines, those meetings, those presentations, or having lack of enough material resources to sustain life. We see the same sort of stress hormones get released in our body. And that's fascinating, right? Because actually most of us, by God's grace, do not have as much problem, especially in the working world. People who are working, they have enough funds to sustain their bread and butter for life, and more often they have shelters to cover, and they have enough clothing. So, but the mind is actually giving them a picture that as if their life is at a risk. It's at a big alarming threatening point. So um, there is merit as well as a demerit in this sort of setup that we have in our physiological body. So I think I see the positive side that while you can use your body to calm your mind, there are situations that comes up in life. You know, you can't be certain about your tomorrow, right? So if you see uncertainty, you have tools, you have somatic tools and practices that you can leverage, and you can calm down your body, because literally, guys, there is no lion in front of you. You know, there's no tiger, there's no tsunami that's coming up right in front of you. So when you have this understanding that you have tools to calm down your mind, and you integrate those practices, and these are like micro practices that takes about 10-15 minutes in a day's schedule. If you build those into your schedule, you can vouch for it that pretty much you'll be 99% centered, and you'll have clarity in your life, and you'll have all the joy, the fulfillment in terms of how you want to operate your life.
Got it. At least for me, I can totally like visualize it, right? When you say these things, because I know that there are times I work in the tech space, and there are so many times where I can almost feel my brain on red alert, right? It's literally on red alert. So now that you say it out loud, you know, when you marry the two together, yeah, my brain probably goes into survival mode, right? Because I can sort of feel the red alert in my head, literally.
Yeah.
um so you said that there are exercises that you can do, right? Can you give us one simple exercise that listeners can do to start gaining clarity about, you know, what they truly want and what's draining them, probably?
Sure, sure. And this is so I'm going to tell you something that is really, it's so simple. It won't take you more than 10 minutes, but it really centers you up. So you know, but I'll start with a metaphor here. You know, so imagine, like I said, uh, you have a foggy road, and you're driving and you just can't see anything. So Jess, what do you do?
I mean, like you already said, you turn on the fog lights, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. But before you turn on, you pause, right? You absolutely can't
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
And this is a situation where where it's completely blurry, like you can't see anything. So even switching on the fog lights turns riskier, right? So what do you do first when you're absolutely in a foggy zone? Guys, the first thing, remember, and I quoted this metaphor, is because, it's important to think
Stop,
about this
I guess.
exam. Yes, exactly. That's where I'm coming. It's important to pause. And what we do is that in times of stress, we start gaining more momentum, and we start running here and there. But that's the worst thing to do. You know, you stop, you pause, and you pay attention to what's next, right? You see what's the next one step that you can take safely. So, like you rightly said, you switch on your fog lights, you see what's actually in front of you, and then the clarity works the same way. When life feels cluttered or overwhelming, uh, don't don't speed up, pause and notice. And the tool you asked me is, this is called energy audit. What we do is that we just grab a sheet of paper. It's super easy. You draw two columns. One is energizing and one is draining. Right. So for the next 2 or 3, 4 days, you just observe in terms of, people, thoughts, and task. PTT, you can remember for that word. People, thoughts, and tasks. See what's filling you up and what's emptying you. So what's draining you and what's really energizing you in terms of those three things, people, thoughts, and task. You'll be surprised when you give that awareness to these aspects of your life. You'll be surprised how clarity will come in, because um, clarity often doesn't really need answers. It just need awareness, and that's what this tool does for you.
Very I'm thinking about it, and I think it'll be a very useful tool to implement. People, thought, and tasks. Between energizing and draining you out.
Training, yes.
Okay, okay. Uh, all right. I'm sure it's going to be very useful. I often work with the therapist for various things that I, sort of process. And one of the things he gave me was something similar. He said that whenever you are feeling overwhelmed about something, just start writing it down. Just start writing what are you feeling overwhelmed about, and then, like, you know, once you write it down, take a step back and then reevaluate and then put the logic back to it, and then look at it if it's really that threatening as you sort of perceived it in the first go, right? And I know how much it helped me because, like you said, I think a lot of the time we go back to our limbic brain and we start getting chaotic and muddled up in
Yeah.
our brain,
Yeah.
while in reality, there's nothing like that, right? It's all in your
Exactly.
head. So I'm
It's
sure
all
this.
perception.
Correct, correct, correct. Like once I write it down and then I step back and I look at the logic part of it, I realize that a lot of it is just in my head.
Yeah.
And I am sure, I think I'll also try this out. The people, thoughts and tasks between energizing and, training. And I'm sure that then helps you pick up what you should be focusing on more versus what you probably can let go. Okay. Now the other thing was, a lot of the times we get caught up, like you said, right? And we just go with the rhythm. But is there a strategy that we can follow to separate what is our true desires versus what others expect out of us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worst thing to do is, and very lately in my life, I've realized that I was also running on a lot of shoulds, and shoulds are too loud. They're too heavy for us, and unfortunately, these shoulds are not even yours. They're either shared by society or social media or friends or your parents or your mentors, and we all know how heavy it feels to carry all of these shoulds. So what we do here is that we do a three-step should detox exercise, which is what you do is you just list down your current shoulds, the ones that are driving your life. Like other could be, I should be at this role, I should be a perfect mother, or I should be whatever it is that's really top five for you. And then what you do is you ask, whose voice is this? Yeah, because you'll be surprised to see that most of those shoulds is not even your voice. So you're able to disintegrate completely, whether it's you're asking your narrative or it's someone else's. And then the third step is that you choose to then flip the should to a choose narrative. Example, let's say I should be more successful. So that converts. So you change that should in the line. You say, I choose to define success on my terms. Right. Another example I'll give you here is you say, I should be further ahead. But you can say, I choose to honor my own pace and define what progress means to you, right? Some people say I should always be saying yes, but no, flip the story of should and say, I choose to align at my own pace and rhythm and say yes only when it feels aligned with me. So you see, when you change that should narrative to a choose narrative, you'll see that your choices will change. And the reality is, real desires are not loud, they don't shout so much. They whispers, they are sitting within you. And when you start hearing them, you only start hearing them when your noise within, that we were talking about, that settles down. So that's a should detox that really helps people a lot.
So you mentioned three steps, just to reiterate. First is note down your shoulds. Second is
Yes.
separate them from you and understand what's the root cause of the should, separate them. And third is replace the should with the choose. And you are
Choose.
right. Often a lot of shoulds are baggages that we carry on, either generation, societal, or even internal, due to, various other factors. And
Yeah,
often, if we look back, they're not really choices that we give to ourselves. It's
absolutely. Absolutely. And nowadays we are picking most of the shoots from social media.
True, that too, right? Somebody else is doing this.
Yeah.
Especially, I always say this to people who are getting married, right? Don't get carried away with the wedding. The marriage is more important. But these days with social media, everybody gets so carried away that I should have this, I should have this,
Yeah.
I should
Yeah.
have this for all these things.
Yeah.
Um, that's I think that's a very interesting framework, and I'm sure it'll be useful for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Um, Now you've worked with people, and what are like three immediate benefits you have noticed that people start seeing when they start getting clear?
Hmm. See, when clarity lands, going back to the same metaphor, the fog clears out. You feel so much conviction in the next step you're taking. You start hearing yourself again. And here's what I've seen time and again: people, my clients, and myself, even myself, that when that clarity kicks in, you stop guessing, second guessing. You completely don't, you have conviction in your steps. You move from that mental noise to uh, inner knowing. That it's the right direction to go, and you start trusting your choices more. Second, I would say, is that you start saying no without guilt. You're no longer in the people pleasing attitude, or you want to have validation of you're performing, because those actions and decisions are now rooted in what matters to you. You're no longer operating from how I can please that person, or how I can please my parent, or that my wife or my husband or my boss. So that people pleasing attitude, that subsides, and that gives you that inner calm already, because you no longer want to operate from that, rather what matters to you. The third is that you feel forward momentum. And again, these are all going back to the same PFC thing, right? We talked about prefrontal cortex. When your prefrontal cortex, that gets activated, you have sort of regulated your nervous system. And what it does is it gives you clarity, it gives you planning, it gives you emotional regulation, it gives you forward momentum. So if you have a project to kickstart, now that you have clarity, you know that you can kickstart. You get that forward momentum ahead, and you stop spinning. You start moving with intention, with clarity. Think about it something like, um, when you have 20 tabs open in your laptop, and you're kind of switching here and there, and you're wasting energy, to finally being able to just focus on one clear page. Your energy, your time, effort, and even your brain feels so much lighter when you're just working on one tab instead of 20 tabs, juggling. So yeah, so it's really like, when clarity hits, it's really like moving from foggy and frozen to focused and flowing, and that's the magic of clarity.
The metaphor you gave about tab, I was really thinking, actually, literally in Mac, it says, right, when you have your multi tabs open, it says it's taking up this much energy to keep this tab open. Do you really want to keep it open, right? So it's
Yeah, yeah,
literally that mentally.
yeah.
Right. So makes a lot of sense. Uh, you also spoke about purpose, about how you help people align with their purpose. When you talk about purpose, it often feels like a big scary concept of you leaving everything and sort of, in a very Indian metaphor, almost leaving your family and going to the Himalayas and figuring out what your purpose is, right? How do you define it in a way that feels achievable for day to day professionals and entrepreneurs?
Sure, sure. So you see, that's the thing about purpose, right? I mean, so we are so misled about purpose. And for a very long time, I've been into this studies for about 20, 25 years, that I've been also searching my purpose, that it's going to be something that I need to find out externally, and it's going to be a big, heavy mission, a big splashing moment. Often it feels like a big thing, but in all honesty, it's not. And that's where the huge shift is. People don't know about it, that you build your purpose. It's not like you find it, and you build it moment for moment here, through your aligned actions, through your values, through what matters to you. So I define it as a sense that, the impact that your presence create, when you live with your values, right? So now that you are aware of your values, what matters to you, you want to show up each day with that values. And definitely it's not about changing the world overnight, it's about how you show up with intention. So the other day, Jess, I bounced a pound, um, a reel, which I rarely do though. But there was a reel about this traffic police officer. I don't know if you know about him. He's from Madhya Pradesh. And I think he gave me a best example of how I can describe purpose, because precisely he's living that purpose every day. What he's doing is, and it's quite famous. So, what he's doing is, he's just not managing traffic there. He's dancing joyfully, enjoying his role so much that now people are looking at him smiling, and they are waiting at the traffic lights and not bypassing that red light. And he says, this is for me bringing more meaning to my work. That now people are not budging those red lights. They're not crossing those red lights, and they want to enjoy the rhythm of my dance. So you see how an ordinary man turned his regular job into a purpose, that is purpose in motion, I call. So think of purpose like your compass. It's not like a destination you reach at. It's like a compass that guides you moving along your path. And certainly you don't need the whole map. You just need one aligned step that feels true to you. So when you act from your values, what means a lot to you, you lead life with clarity, calm, meaning. You want to show up every day. And I would say that instead of asking, what's my purpose? Try asking, how do I want to show up today? What energy do I want to leave in the rooms I enter? And that changes everything. When your purpose shifts from proving, performing, or achieving to presence and meaning, and living life joyfully around themes that matters to you. So that's purpose.
Very interesting definition. So you said purpose is not something we find, it's something we build.
Yes.
What would you suggest could be a practical step for somebody, to start connecting with their inner work and find a deeper sense of purpose?
Sure, sure. See, purpose, as you rightly said, also, it needs to be one aligned step at a time. It's something you create over time. It just can't be done, in overnight. It has to come through your aligned choices. You go back to values, what matters to you, and it's certainly not hiding in any big opportunity. It's how you respond in the moment with what matters to you. So you start small. I would say choose one value that matters to you, and this is what we do in our reset and rise. We look upon deeply what are your core values that drives your decisions and that matters to you. So let's say you have curiosity or growth or kindness. Let that shape how you show up at work. For example, if you value growth, you volunteer for a task or a project where it can stretch you. You ask for feedback because that'll help you grow. And you also reflect on what you have learned, what was challenging in this. So when you act from your point of values consistently, your brain's prefrontal cortex, again, I'm bringing the science because I love how science can convince people. And it has convinced me so much that it strengthens the connection between your choices and your sense of meaning. And that's how you build purpose, not in the big leaps, but by choosing to operate from values and choosing alignment each day and changing your energy.
Very well said, Swimita. I was taken aback to my definition of partnership, right? I always believe in marriages or whatever kind of partnership. People often talk about soulmates and things like that. I don't know if I don't believe in soulmates, but I always believe that any relationship requires work, right? People often believe that you just turn up and, they should accept you for who you are and you should accept them for who you are. But the truth is, any relationship, and including even being a parent or being a daughter, every relationship requires work. And it's about those tiny moments of making sure you are there for the other person, aligned to what they would want and what you would want out of the relationship.
Yeah.
Um, and that perspective for me has shifted a lot of things in terms of how, or at least that's the way I approach relationships often. It's not that you just take it for granted. And
Yeah.
I see that shift in the way you explain purpose as well. It's the way you live your life. You make your choices in alignment with what you want your life to be. And I think that's so beautifully said, because um, I know that in my life, even in terms of that shift I had when I started looking at relationships slightly differently,
Mm.
I started realizing that it actually makes it more beautiful, because
Yeah.
you are not taking anybody for granted. You're not taking your parent for granted. You're not taking your daughter for granted. You do realize that everything is daily choices that you make. And it's the same thing about what you said, just at a broader perspective about everything you do in life. Very,
Yeah.
very beautiful.
I love it how you said it. You've said it in a very beautiful words. Exactly. We bring this purpose to how we really want to show up in our relatives, or our loved ones, how we want to be parent to our child, how I want to show up as a wife, not just as professionals. I mean, when you understand how purpose can be integrated in your life, you change as a person. And that makes your life so much, joyful and beautiful and powerful. You're living at ease, and your relationships will just start reflecting the same ease. They'll be much more closer to you. So I love it. You bring it to that relationship aspect.
so, you said that you help them through various, you sort of mentioned a few steps. A lot of people, especially in today's world, sometimes feel that their job is not their purpose, right? Because people often associate purpose with a bigger sort of thing. But you gave this beautiful example of a traffic policeman taking as simple a job and converting it into a process, into a purpose. When you work with clients, right, are there like two or three steps that you can tell, the audience as to these are the three steps you can take to sort of infuse more purpose into their daily tasks, even if it's not their so-called dream job or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, you said it rightly. We wake up, and most of people don't really wake up to their dream jobs. That's the reality of life, right? But that doesn't really have to feel that your life is empty. Start with this one question: uh, if I can change my job today, how can I change to show up in a way makes that matters to me? And here's a fun twist: you pick up on one value, like I said earlier, right? So it could be anything from being humorous to curiosity to growth to kindness. And you ask that
Can you
how,
define values? Sorry to interrupt, because sometimes people often um, confuse values to moralities, right?
see, values are something that without which you really can't operate in your life, things that matters to you. For example, for some people, if love is a value, then they would want to show up with love in every aspect of their life. They would want to bring love in their office. They would really take care of people. The kindness, or for example, you see that people who are kind, you would see the kindness emerging of out of them across all aspects of their life. If I value growth, then I value growth not just in my professional space, but also growth in my personal space, like how I'm becoming a better person in terms of the different relationships that I hold. So when it comes to values, it these are the values that drives you. You're born with. Like some people have a growth mindset. Some people uh, value more family relationships over materialistic affairs, right? Like they would not want to value as much their money, as much they would want to value relationships. So see what drives you, and there are tools to kind of just get to the top 5 values that are more important to you. And these are tools where you have some 300, 400 values listed out, and it will just help you kind of come to the top 5 that matters to you. Because truly, honestly speaking, we are all very blurred when it comes to values, and I had no idea what drives me. Because for me, kindness was a virtue, being honesty was a virtue, but not everything can be top 5, right? So top 5 are the ones that really are important to you, and if those are not lived, you find like you're not aligned with your life. So there are tools. Leverage those tools to kind of narrow down on the top few values that you matter most, that you are driven with. And what you do is, like said, right? So for example, if you have humor or curiosity or growth, then you say, how would think about it, like how would a more humorous version of me can show up at work today? So if it's humor, you say maybe how you bring it up is like you bring more laughter in the meeting room, right? If it is growth, then you will be asking questions in the meetings. And if it is kindness, then you definitely want to help someone, as someone with encouragement, but without really expecting it. You're no longer driven by people pleasing attitudes. It's your kindness. You would want to anyway do it. You know what I mean? It's like, because that makes you feel fulfilled. So, so that is what I want to share here. That purpose doesn't require a job change. It requires a shift in your intention. And the most powerful way to change your experience, what I've seen, is that when you change the energy you bring to it. So start operating from your values. See how you can bring more of that value into your everyday being, and start getting more intentional. Change your energy and operate from those values. You'll see the magic happening to you.
So, to sort of bring it together, right? People can use a lot of tools that are out there, even ChatGPT or Google, to sort of
Absolutely. Yeah.
help figure out what could be their top five values and probably pick up one at a time and see how they can infuse that into their daily routine and be intentional about it. And that would eventually help them navigate their overall life in a more purposeful, driven manner.
Yeah,
Nice,
you'll
I
start
think.
seeing the immediate effect, Jess. Like when you start showing up with those values that matters to you most, because you were not sure of these values, right? So you were not kind of showing up with those values. You were sometimes not, and that's why you see that sometimes people, they accidentally fall upon their purpose because they start living, by those values, and then they're like, oh, I'm enjoying this. Like for me, being a coach and coaching and helping people is a value for me. And all along, I've been doing this, in my HR role when I moved from being an engineering graduate to being in the HR world. And I saw the aspect of me when I was actually coaching people. That was the best day for me. Like I was enjoying that role so much more than any other roles within the HR domain. And when I got to know that this is my top one value, I could really make synergies out of it. That why in those days when I was actually coaching people, I was feeling so fulfilled coming back home. So that's what it does to you. A lot of people accidentally fall into those rhythms of life where they say that I found my purpose. Uh, but when you get intentional, you're much likely going to infuse those values, and you start living life purposefully.
I think it's very interesting what you mentioned, right, about your coaching thing. So it sort of makes the synergy very clear what you just said, right? So initially you said you start writing down people, thoughts, and tasks that energize you and drain you. And probably when you start writing it down on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, you'll start noticing things which energize you, which are probably related to your value system.
Yeah.
And then you can sort of use that to come up with your value system and infuse more of that into the other activities. Interesting. When you work with people, right, and you see that people start operating from a place of purpose instead of goals, what is the biggest shift that you see in your clients?
See, it's like switching from running on a low battery to really have found that you have a power bank, right? And you have a power bank that was all along plugged into you. So clients go from operating on obligation to really moving with intention. And the biggest shift, like you asked me, they stop asking, "Am I doing enough?" Because now they start asking, "Does this one feels aligned to me?" Now, this activity, these people, do they feel like I am aligned to them? The shift is their energy changes, their presence substance, and they no longer chase recognition or people pleasing attitude. Now they are operating from creating impact, meaning. They want to bring more meaning to life. And people start seeing that change in you. They start, there's something wrong, there's something different about you, you're not even trying. But I would say that it's not about that performance glow up, it's when it's about their alignment glow up. And again, from a science perspective, when you start living from purpose, you re-engages that prefrontal cortex, remember? So you're now down regulating your stress hormones and survival stress responses. You're very clear, you're not reactive at all, and you have more emotional bandwidth. So your relationships become better, your work profile, your love life, everything gets better. And coming back to your question, right? Purpose doesn't just change what you do more often, it changes how you operate, how you feel while doing it. So that changes you completely. And that's the best part.
A question that I have for you, probably a little bit out of the standard questions. Basis what you have seen and you've worked with clients, is work-life balance really possible, or is it a goal that people should look to have? How have you sort of looked at it or felt about it working with clients? Or is it a myth? Because sometimes I feel it is a myth. But you know, from your perspective, because I'm sure integrating purpose also integrates the life aspect of it, right? It's holistic.
No, I agree. And a lot of us think that. I used to think for a very long time that it's a goal, and then I thought it's not possible. So I would say it's neither a myth nor a goal. It's a rhythm. So imagine your life like a playlist, right? Some weeks you have high tempo, you have launches, you have deadlines, you have meetings, decisions to be made. But other weeks they are slow. It calls for more rest and reflection, and you will ease out. So the problem is when you're trying to make it a complete balance, like 50-50, you want to distribute your day evenly. Because if you try to do that, Jess, you're only causing your burnout. Life has to flow effortlessly. And real balance means you choose your rhythm. You should know when to pause, when to push, and most importantly, when to protect your peace. Because if you're not able to do that, you again fall into that nervous system dysregulation stuff, right? Your inner compass. Now, when you have regulated your uh, emotions, you're very clear. You know what's aligned and what's not aligned. So it's not really about achieving that flawless balance, but really about, because if you do that, trust me, burnout is something that will be resulting. So um, I think it's really about building your own soundtrack, your own rhythm that supports your life, that supports your family, that supports your well-being uh, holistically.
Understood. Um, Now, another aspect that often comes, and you are a purpose and a power coach, right? What does inner power actually look like in action, and how does it sort of help us navigate various challenges and doubts that every now and then creep up into our lives?
See, inner power is like when you have complete clarity, into what's right, what's aligned with you, what's not aligned with you. And I would say that when you have that clarity, your day-to-day operation becomes very easier. You're more joyful. You're not performing. You're working with that alignment, right? That we have already seen how it works with science and with Vedic wisdom as well. You sort of harmonize all your five layers, which is your physical, energetic, emotional, mental, your bliss layer as well. A common myth here is that people think that this will make you fearless, like you'll become this bold, invincible version of yourself where there will be never doubts and never you never panic and you never hesitate. It's not like that. The truth is, inner power is, it does not eliminate the fear, to be honest, but it calms it down. It's like the volume is a bit lower now when you operate from inner power. Think of fear as a background soundtrack. It's always there, but it's tuned down. So your inner power doesn't really silence fear, and that's the myth. That it will be, you'll never have any fear. But what happens is that it expands your courage. It helps you discern what is the truth and what is the noise, what's right, what's wrong. And the inner power is not loud. It's calm, it's it's soft, it's quiet, it's certain, and it's unshakable. So no, you won't wake up one day thinking that you'll be completely Superman and a fearless person, but you'll start hearing your own voice louder than the fear itself. And that is very powerful. That changes everything for you.
So, is there sort of say one mindset shift that people can look to adopt to tap into this inner power, especially like you said, in situations where they are feeling overwhelmed?
See, when you're overwhelmed, try this shift. And this is what has helped me. And I do it like most of the times when I'm in a bit more stretched situations that have helped client as well. You pause, you don't push. Most of us, right, go into fixing what's causing the stress. That's the worst thing. We've touched upon this briefly earlier, but real power comes when you stop and you ask, you know what do I need right now, as opposed to what do I have to do, right? So doing is causing stress because it causes you uh, in the stress loop, and again, you won't get into clarity. So you pause. And one of my clients, and there's an example around it, one of my clients was telling me the other day that um, she used this narrative that instead of doing, she asked herself out of this intense meeting that she had with senior leadership team, that what do she needs in that moment. Instead of spiraling, she really paused and she drank some water. She had some few breaths, and she realized that she was just tired. All she needed was just recentering. She was just overwhelmed with the day, and that pause, that intentional pause that she took, that helped her reset. So inner power often begins with the small moments of check-ins that you have integrated in your day, and I would recommend highly have that. It's not in the doing more, really. It's your full clarity in the moment comes when you pause and you choose one step at a time. When you're completely ambiguous, just think about one next step. So I would say inner power is about remembering that you have rights to pause. You can realign and you can choose to show up with calm, even in the stressful moments. Now, that's what I call inner power.
I'm sure that's like a big shift, right? Because we are so tuned to just going and going, especially in stressful situations, to actually, even if it's just take 2 or 3 minutes of pausing and realigning, I think that's a big shift. And I'm
It
sure that would be
changes you,
very.
Jess. It changes you. I mean, try doing this. I've adopted it, and now I have reminders in my day where I want to take that intentional shift and have that check in with me. How am I feeling? What's exhausting me and what's draining me? And, have a sip of water, a few breaths. You would see your energy will shift right after this 5 minutes of break, which is an intentional one. You'll see magical things happening to you.
So, if there is, say, one quick strategy that people had to implement on a day to day basis to sort of be more focused on their inner power and be more aligned with that, would it be, like you said, a 5 minute break? Or is there anything else that you think could be more helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. You can take that micro breaks through the day. But one of my favorites from also, again, from Reset and Rise journey that we have, in my coaching is that we call alignment anchor. And what it does is that it immediately calms you down. So let's say you're overwhelmed, and you are riding on high stress hormones. What you do is sort of when you're panicking, right? So it's like what you do is it's a 2-minute tool to recenter. You place your hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, right? And you inhale slowly to the count of 4, and you exhale slowly to the count of 6 through your mouth. Okay. And you do that 3 to 5 times. And then you ask yourself, what would the most aligned version of me would choose in this moment? The moment you take, and there's science around it, right? That the moment you take this intentional 2 minute alignment break, you're using your body to calm down your overactive nervous system. Your vagus nerve that cuts through, and it goes till your digestive system and up until end, that gets activated. So with these 3 to 5 breathings that you take, where you are taking in 4 to the count of 4 and you're exhaling 6, you immediately calm down your nervous system and your vagus nerve gets activated. So that simple act of tuning calms your sympathetic nervous system. We also call it, sympathetic nervous system, and it brings back again your PFC, our favorite. That performs all the executive functions like clarity, forward momentum, creativity, planning. That kicks in. So you start acting from a place of deep self trust. Now you're not in fear. You sort of see that pressure is easing out, and just I've had clients, use this before their performance reviews, before their board meetings, and even before saying yes or no to big decisions in their life. I would say that it might not give you the right answer, but you will certainly it'll give you your answer in that moment. So give it a try sometimes when you're in high stress situation, and you'll be
Why
surprised.
why touching the heart and the belly?
See, because vagus nerve, it starts from your back of the brain, and then it goes right up until your lower abdomen, right? Even to your excretory system. So when you touch your belly and your heart, these are the areas which immediately gives that shift in terms of calmness. Even there are other techniques as well. People say you start grounding exercises, right? So in terms of some grounding exercises, you also hug yourself. That's another tool that we use. You in moments of stress, so when you hug yourself, you do this massaging, it calms down your nervous system. And this reminds me of that Three Idiots movie, right? All is well, all is well. So when you do that, your heart, which is overactive and pounding high, it sort of gets calm, right? That you're okay. It's soothing. So we take any soothing exercises in that moment, and of course, you really can't, uh, you know, uh, go and take cold showers, because even that helps. So if you're stressed, you can even try taking cold showers. So, but those are things that are not possible externally when you are actually outside of the meeting room. So things like self hug, or just having quick breaths, 3 to 5, that activates your vagus nerve, which goes right from your head to your perineum down there. And once it gets activated, your PFC comes online, and your amygdala, the limbic brain, which is that gets overactive due to stress, that calms down immediately. So you'll be much better in those moments then.
Nice. The one breath I took itself was very calming for me. So I'm sure, if you do this as I felt so nice just, sort of doing that with you. So I'm sure if you
Yeah,
actually do it more mindfully, it's going to be even better.
yeah, yeah.
What is
It
the
works. It
ultimate?
works like magic.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
yeah,
Just that,
please.
like I said, that 1 second that I did it with you, I felt so nice. So I'm sure it does. What's the ultimate outcome users can expect, right, by activating clarity, purpose, and inner power? Is it happiness? What do you think is the ultimate?
Yeah, again, very interesting question, and I'm glad you asked that, because when you truly activate these, your clarity, purpose, and inner power, you stop chasing life and you start choosing it. The shoulds are gone. Now you're choosing it, remember? Your choices become more cleaner. You are more intentional. Your presence become calm and magnetic. And in neuroscience, we say that you no longer then work from your reactive brain. you now are in responding mode. You're responding. You're not in the survival mode anymore, and which most of us are nowadays. And that's why you see people are not stressful and don't have clarity. And your PFC comes back. You're able to navigate easily with stability. And when you bring in that yogic science aspect as well, right? Your all the 5 layers that we talked about, they get energized, like they get harmonized. Your body feels alive, your energy flows, your thoughts are cleaner, your intuition, your wisdom, which is your 4th layer, that gets louder. So you're very clear with your intuition, what's next and what's the right step. And you feel joy of life, that's the blissful layer. So just I've seen people going from stuck and scattered and feeling lost to really being alive and expensive. And not because their job has changed, they're still in the same jobs, a lot of them, but because now they change how they want to show up in life, right? They move from proving and performing and that unnecessary pressure of life to living life joyfully. And that's the ultimate shift when you start operating from that clarity, inner power, and purpose.
Great. Is there any book you would like to recommend for somebody who's on this journey?
Um, sure. I mean, there are a lot of books, and I am an ardent book lover. I've got like at least 300, 400 books here. But and the recent one that that I really love is The Atomic Habits by James Clear. And what I love about that book is that it flips the script, right? It's not about motivation. It's about identity shift, because a lot of us struggle with that micro habits, how we can really inculcate those micro habits. The book helped me shift from forcing new routines to becoming the version that I want to be. And I think that's a huge unlock, right? Especially when you're rising out of burnout. You want to have those habits that are built into your routines at ease. You don't want to force yourself. And this one starts small. So and then it says you become the best version of yourself because you start living that day in, day out. So I mean, give it a try. This book is a magical. It just gives you how your identity shift can completely change you into becoming the best version that you thought you would be in few years time, but you already start living that with those micro shifts that you integrate in your life.
Yeah, it's a book even I really like. I call it a very commonsensical approach that book has. Breaking
Yeah,
down these big things into these small
very
things.
small.
Yeah, you sort of know you sort of know, but you just don't think about it like that, right? How to even
Yeah.
approach new habits and
Yes.
how to inculcate them and things like that. Got it. So we are at the end of our session. If there's just one takeaway or one piece of advice you would like to give to anybody who is listening, what would that be, Swimita?
um See, I would say that, guys, a lot of us are feeling heat of burnout and disengagement in this world. It's not an easy time we are living in. But guys, you're not broken, I would say. As we've learned that we are layered, energetic beings. So underneath all the noise, the roles, the pressures we've had, and the performances that we tend to acquire over years, just remember that your clarity, purpose, and your power is still sitting there beneath. You don't need to become someone else. All you need to do is just remember, chuck out what's not working for you and bring those clarity, inner power up there. So you can be joyful. So start small, practically speaking, start small. Take intentional break, pause, breathe, slow down, and definitely bring those intentional breaks into your day, and start asking better questions. What do I want to feel today? Um, what one small way I can honor myself today? Because I feel that from that place, everything shifts. Just and I often say that your outer life expands in the direct proportion of how deep you're willing to lead from within. So if you're listening and feeling stuck, uh, I don't think so. It's an end. It's definitely not an end. In fact, it's the reset. And let this moment be the beginning of your rise. We have the tools, we have the techniques to bring this life alive again, and have this life more meaningful, in alignment, living with clarity, joy, and purpose. So that's my 2 cents at the last.
Really, really beautifully said, Swamita. I totally enjoyed our conversation. It was very deep while still being very practical, right? So I think at least I took away a lot. So I'm sure anybody who's listening would also have a lot of practical tips on how they can sort of realign themselves. So thank you so much for your time, Sumita. It was a pleasure to have you. And for everybody who's watching, we will link in her socials below. She's also on TopMate. She's the top 1% at TopMate. So if you want to have a session with her, we'll link in those details in the description. Feel free to sort of reach out and work with her. Thank you, Sumita. Like I said, it is totally amazing to have you, and was a total pleasure to just, take in all these pearls of wisdom coming out of you.
Thank you, Jaslin. It's been an amazing 1.5 hour, almost 1 hour plus with you. Time flies, really. And thank you for asking all those very intelligent questions, because not many people are aware. There are a lot of myths and stories around purpose and inner power, right? So I'm glad you asked me that question and you gave me an opportunity to share, so people can be benefited. Thank you very much once again. And it was pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you so much.